different socioeconomic stratus or background. And over a period of years and people praying, we're here. We're here in this place, in this space where God has called us to engage our neighborhood. And of course, according to our social healing definition, we are here to reweave the fabric of our community. And this is a great step into engaging our neighbors and building relationships. And I'm so excited. And I have to make sure I keep myself composed because I can really move around and just jump all over this place. And it's like, wow, pinch me, okay? Am I dreaming or what? Pinch me. So I'll give you a little history about the code of conduct. And this happened years ago when I was in Atlanta, urban ministry. And now you have to know ministry is good. It's exciting. It's exciting to engage a kid's world and establish relationship with young people. But it's also important to have an understanding. And so, quick little story. We had a number of at-risk inner city kids that were coming to the church for a Bible study. And we have a number of volunteers that are coming down from the suburbs, and they just want to get involved and want to touch and just walk alongside of the kids in the urban context. And there was something that, and someone said, well, you guys are a little bit, you live in a neighborhood, but there are some, social differences there, cultural differences. And so what happened was, whenever I was up front, the kids would give me their undivided attention. And when I walk in the room, they were totally composed. Oh, here's Mr. Phil. They called me Mr. Pastor Phil, right? And I had one volunteer to say, I'm noticing something. When you are here, the kids are well behaved for the most part, y'all. They're not perfect. Okay, they weren't perfect in my presence, right? I'm not God, I'm just man. But he said, but when it's just us, when you're not around, they could care less what we're talking about. They're not even listening to us. We're constantly saying, be quiet, come on guys, they're not listening. He said, that is wrong. And I said, I agree. And he said, he was an old military guy, he was retired, and he said, we need a code of ethics. And that's just his background. We gotta have some order in this place. And so we toned it down and we call it the code of conduct. And so I don't know how you are feeling this, even at this time when you talk about a code of conduct. Let's just have the kids come in and read and learn and just have fun. Well, I don't know if you have had kids or some of you I know are parents, but kids need structure. And kids won't ask for it, but they want it too. Because with structure, it gives them some safety. They feel like it's a safe place for them. And so this is why we believe the code of conduct, not a code of conduct is critically important to an after-school program where we are bringing kids into this beautiful facility from the neighborhood. And so I'd like for us, I won't do all of the talking, I'd like for you to be thinking and feeling and envisioning what it would look like for you to be in this space with the kid and talk about some of the worst case scenarios. And we have to talk about some worst case scenarios because those things will happen. And what I mean by worst case scenarios, well, kids are going to fight. I'm sorry, they're going to fight. It's a part of who they are. And so don't expect the kids to come into this setting. It's very nice in here. It's a new thing. Don't expect them to come in and be well behaved. They're going to come in and be who they are. They're going to come in and say, hey, this is how we roll. But what we're saying is we have a standard here. And we want you to adhere or support and endorse this standard of behavior. And so you're gonna find that they're gonna kind of bump heads with this code of conduct. And I must say this, what we're hoping to do is to have this type of setting with the kids, the students who are part of New Star, as well as with their parents. We would like to do it both. You're getting your part. You're gonna understand a little bit of what we're gonna talk about with the parents and the students. And then once this thing is implemented, once you start coming out and serving alongside of the kids and working with them, then you too will have authority. The code of conduct is for the safety of our kids, is to help the parents understand what the expectations are, help the kids understand what the expectations are, and it gives you authority. Have you ever been in a position where, you ever been in a position when you were in charge, but you had no authority? I mean, how frustrating is that? You're like, well, I'm supposed to be in charge, but I'm not controlling this matter. The code of conduct is your friend. The code of conduct is your friend. So that you don't feel awkward and you don't feel like, I don't know what to do. Okay? We want to prepare you. All right. So I want to share a couple of verses before we jump right into this document. The Bible tells us in Ephesians 6:1, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. We want our kids to continue to obey and support and respect the authorities. You are their authority when they are here in this facility. Yes, you are. And I don't care how young you are. I see we got some young folk in here. You are their authority, and they need to respect you. Now, you want to be careful with your authority, and that's for all of us. All right? But you are the authority. You are the person who's going to help protect them. So they need to respect you, and you need to respect them. And the other verse I'd like to talk about just for a little bit, and it's found in Philippians 2, in verse 3. It says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves. Not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of the other. Not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of others. Now, why am I even sharing this verse, these two verses? Because this whole idea of engaging the kid is not about you, but it is also, it's not about you, but it's about them. And what does that mean? That it's not about you, it's about them. Okay, I'm not here so I can fix them. I'm not here so they can be a straight A student or be an Einstein. I'm here to help you have a very constructive environment, a very safe environment where you can learn. So what I mean by you giving your way to their way is that you can't control issues that need to be dealt with. Okay, for instance, it's hard to get into it. Here's the deal, paternalism. One of the biggest struggles that folk have when they come into an urban context is they don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. It's not about you. That's what I was trying to say. One of the biggest things, I'm telling you, is paternalism. You have such heartaches at home, and there's so many struggles, people telling you no, they're yelling at you, they're cursing you out, and we just want to let you know that you are loved, and yes, that is true. But make no mistake about it, you can also give them what they need, and sometimes the love needs to be a little tough. Normally when I share that to my white brothers and sisters, they give me the look that you guys are giving me. And so I'm not judging your hearts, but I just understand a lot of the challenges and struggles. Okay, I'll give you a quick example. And we'll go really breeze through the code of conduct, and you'll ask some questions, I hope. I remember taking a group of kids to an urban camp away from the community. And this is in Chattanooga. We went to an area called, what was the name of that camp?
Vesper Point.
Vesper Point. Boom! Thank you, Caroline. They spent some time in Chattanooga after I left. So at any rate, we took kids up, and we had college-age students that were there to help us lead the kids and stay with the kids overnight. And we went over the code of conduct, making sure they understood the same talk I've given you. I gave to them, and I said, now hear me. If the kids got a line, go ahead and call them out when they're wrong. Call them out. Yeah, if they violate the code of conduct, give them a verbal warning. Say, you have violated the code of conduct. You don't do that, okay? And so we went through this training, and they're looking at me like you're looking at me and all. And then sure enough, when the kids came up, and they were at the campsite, and I'm seeing the kids just going all over the place. And I'm up front, and they're just talking and just jumping and moving around. And then I say to the camp counselors, hey, camp counselors, kids are breaking the code of conduct. Write them up, do something. I got frustrated because I'm like, there was chaos, and I couldn't control it. We don't want you to feel that way. And do you know what I found out? I'm sorry for talking so loud. And what I found out was that the counselors were letting kids get away with murder. Yeah. They would say, you know what I'm talking about. And they were saying, stop it, or I'm going to give you a warning. And they repeated that 100 times. Stop it, or I'm going to give you a warning. No, give them a warning. Give it to them because they will not take you seriously. And at some point, and check out, this did happen. At some point throughout that week, we had camp counselors coming to the cabin at night saying, Mr. Phil, we need your help. This kid did this to me earlier today, and I just let him get away with all these things all week long, and I just can't take it anymore. And they're crying because they're out of control. They had the authority, but they didn't use it because they were too paternal. Oh, we know your background. It's okay. I remember when I was a kid, I didn't like it when adults told me what to do. So, yeah, we don't have to listen to all that stuff. We'll undermine, here's the deal, we'll undermine the authority because I'm your friend. I'm your friend. you can be the kid's friend, but you also need to be the authority. Let me tell you why. Now, this is going to be a little hard to listen to. It's an example. I remember in Chattanooga, there was a killing, and so there was a police pulled a guy over and asked the guy to step out of the car. And the guy hesitated to come out of the car. This guy he was new on the job. He was a rookie cop. Asked the person to come out of it because the police pulled the vehicle over because the tailpipe was dragging the ground. And so he wanted to make sure everything was cool. They're doing their proper procedures. And the person in the car slowly got out, and the police said, step away from the car. The person proceeded around the car and went over, and the police said, sir, step away from the car. Or maybe he used the term vehicle, I don't know. And so he walks around to the passenger side, he reaches over, and the police was a rookie. He thought the guy was going for a weapon, and the police opened fire. And another police showed up, and he was open firing too. A couple police shooting this guy. Killed him. And they found out that he was a little mentally unstable, and he was reaching for a screwdriver. But the reality, I'm sure the police officer thinking, I have a family to go home to, and I'm thinking you're going into your vehicle to shoot me or hurt me or harm me. And so what is this? Why do I share this story? It's because the police asked the fellow to step away from the vehicle several times, and the fellow did not follow instructions. Some of our kids are that way today. And some of our kids won't get to the place where they'll learn to follow instruction. They'll get older. And they will still have the same issues and not following instructions, and it could cause them their lives. So I put a little weight on your shoulders to say, when you are challenging a kid at an early stage, you are teaching them. Perhaps you are saving them from terrible things that could come for them. So that's how critically important it is for you to tell a kid, no, don't do that. Here are the consequences. How are you wrestling with that so far? I laid it out on you. I laid it out for you. And I'm sharing stuff with you that I've seen for almost 30 years, if that means anything to you. If that means anything to you. And I'm standing here before you to say also that there are kids that I've worked with over the years, and some of them didn't make it. They were murdered. They were in the wrong place at the wrong time because they didn't follow instructions. And there's this one kid, and I'll get into the code of conduct. I'm just sharing this is so important. I'm saying this is so important. As much as we're excited about getting the kids in the door, you're like, you just put a damper on our spirits. We want to feel happy. But I want you to experience success as well as the kids. We want them to win. We want them to do well in life. We want them to do those things. So long story short, there's one kid, he just wanted to fight everybody. He's just upset. And I just say, come on. I'll save his name and protect the innocent. Withhold his name. And I'll say, come on. I said, son, he was probably about 12 years old. I said, if you don't get your act together, you're going to end up in jail, or you're going to hurt because you hurt someone, or someone's going to hurt you. And it wasn't about maybe 2 or 3 years later, he was arrested for armed robbery. And he was incarcerated for about 10 years or so. He's back out, and I've had communication with him over Facebook. So these are real issues, okay? And we look at it in our neighborhood, we see the challenges our young folk are facing. But we have an opportunity to instill hope, to infuse hope in their dire strait situation. We are here to represent the hands and feet of Jesus. Bless you. We are here to reflect the glory of God before our neighbors, our kids, and it's not just the kids, but also the parents. Okay, code of conduct. So New Start Community has established a code of conduct to ensure the safety and cooperation of all participants. It is required that all students attending New Start Community support and respect our code of conduct. In the event that the students violate the code of conduct, the New Start volunteer team members will follow through with the appropriate actions. We haven't prayed. Lord Jesus, we thank you so much for this evening, and what a joy it is to be and have the opportunity to be in a place where we can engage in ministry. And I thank you for these individuals who've come out to learn more how we can walk alongside of our students in the neighborhood, how we can build relationships with them and their families, and even with the hope of sharing the gospel And Lord, that your kingdom will be advanced as a result of this. So we thank you for just providing this beautiful building. We thank you, Lord, for the church support. And we just thank you for the people of God who have answered to the call that you placed on our hearts to engage our neighborhood. Thank you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Code of conduct. So here's the deal. Here are the following. So the following behaviors will not be tolerated during the New Star Community After School program. And this code of conduct was pulled together by Will, Caroline, and myself. I wanted to make sure these guys, they're our leaders. I want to make sure they're owning this as well. And so we've worked this together, collaborative effort. And so here's some things that you need to be aware of. And I'll go very briefly through this, but I will slow it down a little bit for you to ask questions, and feel free to ask questions. So here are some of the things that kids will do. And we're saying to them, we won't tolerate it. Disrespecting, okay, showing disrespect, verbally and non-verbally. I'll be very brief. So we know what verbal disrespect is. I'm not going to do that. You don't tell me. And the non-verbal, catch this. It could be so subtle. I'm going to keep my glasses, I can't see. It could be so subtle, it's like, That's disrespect. You got to call them out on that. You got to call them out on that. Because in their minds, they're saying, you mean nothing to me. And I don't care what you're saying. They don't have to say it, but they're thinking it. They're thinking it, and they'll show you with their nonverbal. And you got to be able to pick up on that, okay? Now, let me stop for a second. Even before I get deep into this, you're thinking, am I going to remember all of this? Probably not. But we're here to help and to support you in your efforts of service here. But make sure you understand, disrespect is when they verbally say, I'm not going to follow the instructions you placed before me. If you say, stop touching someone, stop playing, you really mean it. And I'm telling you, when they do that, you have to write them up. Write them up. All right? The other area here, name calling. A lot of this is a part of their culture. Kids just being who they are. You know one thing about my culture? I get excited. Man, it's more personal. I get excited and I talk loud. I can't help it. Can't help it. You may say, Phil, tone it down. It's a small area here. I just can't help myself. And a lot of the kids are the same way. They can't help that they are disrespectful because they've been allowed to do that. Okay? They've gotten away with it. All right? And so the same is true when I look at name calling. That's just what you do. You just call people out their names. It's just what you do. You want to get the best of someone? Oh, you old big head. And that's, in my day, we called it jonesing. Right? And you get some credit. If you're able to say something really funny about somebody else and you're really good, man, you got people applauding you, say, you off the chain. You're good at that. Here's one that I didn't like before people use. This is back in the day. I know they don't use this today. Your mama is so big that when she looks in the mirror says to be continued. I'm just like, whoa, dude. Let me tell you, and it sounds bad. The Bible tells us not to do that. We know this, right? But the reality is this. Whenever, and the reason why name call is just not a good thing, sometimes it starts really harmless. And sometimes volunteers might even say, this is kind of fun. They're saying some funny stuff. Don't encourage it. Don't encourage it. All it takes is for them to say the wrong thing. And normally, when they talk about each other's mama, that's the wrong thing. Don't talk about the mama, because folks go ballistic. You talk about my mama and they just lose it. You can talk about me, you can talk about baby kids, you talk about my mama, it's on and popping, I'm not thinking, I'm going to respond. So name calling isn't a good thing. Call them out on that, okay? The other one, using profanity. Kids use profanity all the time because that's what they've been taught. They hear it around the house and they hear it around the school. I can't tell you, I'm not going to name the school. I went on the campus of Urban School here in Indianapolis and I thought, whoa! I mean, they were cursing like sailors. It's like, what? Hurt my ears. That old MF, okay, I won't go there. I'm just like, whoa. As if they were just talking like I'm talking to, hey, my name is what you are. I'm just, whoa. So they use profanity. And they can't help it. They're so used to it. So you have to call them out on that. You have to call, and you'll get a chance to tell them why they shouldn't do these things. All right, we'll move on. Not following instructions. I hit on that. Lack of participation in program activities. And so some kids, I'm telling you, they'll want to come here to the after-school program, and some days they don't want to do anything. I don't want to do my homework. I don't want to do the activity you're planning for me. I don't want to participate. I don't want to talk. We got to call them out on that. So I would say this to you, and this is Phil. If you're not feeling well, then you probably shouldn't be here, okay? But if you're here and you're feeling all right and you're saying everything's good with you, we need to encourage you to get involved. Because people come in with those negative attitudes, they will bring down the spirit of the whole class. You know, a bump on the law. Give me a break. Come on, make a decision. You're going to be in here or not? And if you're not going to be in here, something's wrong. And so let's kind of hit that on the front end. If something's wrong, let's talk about that. Because if someone's having an issue they're working through or trying to process on their own, and you don't help them understand what's going on with them, then they can go off. Just like that. All right, going on. Exposing their underwear. We call that sagging. You see the guys walking around and normally they hold the front part of the pants and they're just walking, and you see the back part you see the underwear. We don't want that. I hope I'm not moving too far from the camera. We don't want that. We want them to pull their pants up because it's cool. It's a style. But in this culture, we want them to pull the pants up. And when I used to tell kids in Atlanta, if you don't have a belt, we'll get you a rope and we'll do Jethro. You know, the hillbillies, we'll do the Jethro style. We'll get you something to tie them up, because when they start showing me kids could pull the pants on down, then that could be a major issue. We don't want that, right? So if any of these things happen, you need to write the students up. Any questions so far? Another question that people normally have, I know it's a lot. Boom, the water hose is going, the fire hose is going. And so what do you say? So if they violate any of these, the first time they say they do this, we have this card here, or a piece of paper, and we call this the Code of Conduct Offense card. We'll have it in card stock. Maybe we'll just keep it whole. I think Caroline and Will and I think we'll keep it whole. So each kid will get one of these each day that they come. And in the event they violate one of these, the Code of Conduct, we want to document it. We want to come over. I know, y'all, more work. But again, what's the purpose of the Code of Conduct? Ensure their safety, make sure everyone gets a win in the after-school program. And so we come here, we write down the offense. Very simple. So-and-so was kicking someone. So-and-so used profanity. You write it down, and you ask the kid to sign their names or signatures on that card, right? Why do you do that? Because I tell you, our kids have amnesia. I don't remember you telling me that. No, I didn't do that. No, I didn't. You say, yes, we did. You're going back and forth with the kid where you have them sign it, okay, in the moment, and you sign it as well, and you put it down. So you go on to the next activity, and they having a rough day, and they violate the Code of Conduct again. The first time they used profanity, the second time they just didn't really follow the instructions. You say, come on, Johnny, man, I really don't want to do this to you, but now here's the deal. Second offense, I'm going to write down what you did, and during that time, what do we say here when the second offense? If the student or students violate any of the stated Code of Conduct the second time during that day of the tutoring session, he or she will be taken to timeout or have certain privileges taken away from them. So, reality is, so the second time they violate offensive Code of Conduct, violate the Code of Conduct, you write it down and you take them into time out. Now, how many of you guys don't like time out? It sounds so bad. And the reason why we say time out is because something is going on. If they're repeatedly doing these things, it's like, let's just give them an opportunity. If you want to call it time out, we'll call it time out. But if you don't want to call it time out, that's fine. You can call it, let's take a moment. Okay? Whatever makes you feel good, let's take a moment, because I'm afraid that something's going on. It may jack off up in here. Okay? Now that's a little slang I used on y'all. Any questions at this point? Yes.
What if they want to sign their offenses?
Ooh, that's a good one. Because sometimes they totally say, I'm not going to sign it. Mm-hmm. And so what does that mean? They're not following instructions. They're disobeying. They're disrespecting. So we write them up. Especially if that was on their second one or their first one. That's another offense that they violated. And that's unfortunate. They said, I don't care. Forget about it. Well, come on. I want you to sign so we can get you back in the game. So you want to champion them. And they continue with this behavior. You say, oh, sorry, that's the third offense. First of all, you said, I got to give you time out. I ain't going to time out. And you have to know when that happens, you got some problems on your head. You got to know. And at that point, I think if you have a kid who's just totally sticking their heels in the ground and saying, you ain't going to budge me, I'm going to tow you to the line. You need to call for Will, Caroline, and say, we got a little situation going on here, okay? We need some help. We need backup, all right? And then when that happens, then hopefully the kid, you're able to pull the kid away and say, okay, we got to call mom and dad. We got to call them. You know, and before you have to call, he may say, now, Johnny, I want you to think about what you're doing. I want you to try to use some logic, Johnny. Johnny's not thinking about logic, being logical. He's not. Johnny's just like, he's got his, whatever's going on with him, he's got it going on with him. But hopefully we pray that God will diffuse that anger, whatever's going on with Johnny. And hear me when I say this. A lot of our kids is just wrestling with so much stuff, and you don't know what they're going through. And so it's hard to know when to push and when to pull back. As much as I'm saying that you have to follow the code of conduct, but I'm also saying be sensitive to the Holy Spirit. Don't get your emotions caught up into this thing here, fear, or just trying to challenge Johnny, say, you will not talk to me like that because I am the authority. But somehow I pray that you will be praying that God will give you the right words to say. This is ministry, y'all. This is ministry. So I hope I'm not speaking out of both sides of my mouth. But when I say have authority, but at the same time, be sensitive to what God is doing, because I'll tell you this. I've had conversations with kids who are just worked up, and just simply say, come on, what's going on with you? What's going on? And especially, I hope I've answered your question so far, especially when they want to fight. Fighting is a part of our kids' experience. I'm sorry to say that, but it is. That's how you resolve issues, by fighting, not by talking it out. That's what we want to teach them, to be able to rationalize, to be able to talk about it. This is not good. So here's what happened in the past, and I'm telling you, and I think I share just about every training I do when I talk about understanding cross-cultural dynamic when working with kids who are in different cultural contexts. So when kids are ready to fight, normally and you separate them and they clench their fists and they're fuming and they're just kind of hyperventilating. I'm going to get you. And even little ones, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade. Okay, you get the point. And so they're just fuming and just hyperventilating. And I've seen this with the younger age and also teenagers. And when I've said to them, if you're a teacher in the house, and I think you should try this if you haven't already done that, and simple as saying, release, calm down, let go. And I've seen them do what they heard, release their fist. And that young person, all the way up to the 17-year-old that I've done this with, and in each case, they're crying. They're crying. See, a lot of times, our kids don't know how to process their feelings. Fighting is what they learn to survive. That's how you learn to survive in their context. Not all, but many of them do. And so because they don't know how to process their emotions, they just explode. And they just respond, and they kick things, and they want to hit things and hit people and all of this. But all of that is a sign of what's going on the inside. And if you can just slow it down, take yourself out of it. And I know it may seem so intimidating. The kid's so big, they're going to hurt me. If you can just say, I love this kid. I believe that there's something going on with this kid. And if you can say, release, I'm standing with you, I won't let you go. And then I've seen them just, the tears come out. Why? Because they're hurting on the inside. Their emotions are just crazy, and you're able to say, it's okay, I am with you. And if they believe that, then they become vulnerable, and that's why they cry. Because they're trying to open up a little bit, because they feel they can trust you. And in time, they will. So if that happens, you want to call, if they say, I'm refusing to sign this code of conduct, okay, this is a finish card, call for leadership. And at that point, Will and Caroline need to take steps to call the parent, because that kid's having a bad day. And sometimes they don't get it right. Sometimes sending them home for that day is the best thing for them, to get a new start when they come back the next day. Any questions? Okay. So there are some things that, if in the event the kids do when they're here at New Start, we're going to have to send them home immediately. It warrants this type of consequence. And so fighting or stealing, theft, fighting, sexual inappropriateness, bullying, destruction of property, stealing, and lying to the New Star volunteer team members, we have to send them home immediately. Now, why is this important? Stealing is a crime. Is that right? You go to jail for that. And if we condone that, then we're hurting them. So we need to let them know that stealing is wrong. You can go to jail for that outside, okay? I know a little with minors, they don't take you to juvenile for that. They pat you on the wrist, take you home. But we need to help them see the seriousness of stealing, okay? As well as what's the next one? Fighting. It's serious. Because if you assault someone, then they can press charges. So these are serious matters, and I hope I'm not frightening y'all, but it is a reality. I'm not going to set you up, but it is a reality. You say, well, these are little kids, the darling little kids that love to play with your hair and ride your back. Yeah, they have a mean side to them because they are a reflection of their community. This is what they see, and this is what they do. Culture teaches us how we behave. And so in their culture, if this is the way the culture is, this is the way they're going to be, they can't help it. But we want to help them. Okay? Fighting is not tolerated. There must be drastic measures. Must take drastic measures. Sexual inappropriateness. It happens. We have a lot of space in this facility. We have a number of restrooms in this facility. And even at that level, you have little kids doing inappropriate things to each other. I remember in Chattanooga, we had kids in elementary, and one of the kids had a device. I don't know what it was, but he was looking at watching porn on this device he received from his dad. His mom and dad are separated. And he brought it to school, and he brought it to after-school program at the church at New City Fellowship. And our after-school director noticed that the boys were in the back seat, and they were just giggling. And just kind of looking down and just giggling. And she's like, boys, what are you all doing back there? She's driving away from the school to the church. And so she pulled the van over and said, what's going on? And they found this device, and they were looking at porn, and it happens. I shared it with you to say it happens. You have to deal with that. Some of our kids can be traumatized because they've been messed with, touched inappropriately. If they have their own peers doing that, that's wrong. And if they go home and say, Mom, Dad, that boy been touching me, and no one at the center at New Star has done anything about it, Mom get worked up in arms. I will bring charges on y'all. Let this happen to my little one. What if it happened to your little one? How would you feel about that? So we have to take drastic measures in the event the kids commit these type of violence. Yes?
Can you talk about appropriate conduct for leaders in interacting with the kids, touching them?
Very good. I want to say this to you. I looked at, we have 4 restrooms in this facility. And it's important when kids go to the restroom so you can ensure they're not playing in there, that the same gender volunteer team members should go to the restroom and perhaps put a foot in the door and making sure you have conversation with the student while they're inside the restroom. Are you all right? Okay, you're good? Because here's the thing. I'll get to the volunteer. So here's the thing. If you go in the restroom with a kid one-on-one, and it happens sometimes, but you want to avoid that at all costs. If that kid says, he touched me inappropriately, he looked at my private area, then that's that kid's word against yours. Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to frighten you, but and all that we do in doing good, there's always the enemy is trying to stir things up. Always that. So I think also when you're trying to restrain a kid from fighting. Someone like you say, I mean, some volunteers mean to just get out of control and say, you hit me, I'll hit you back, Johnny. I'll shake you, Johnny. That's inappropriate. Now, that's not inappropriate sexually, but in terms of handling someone. So how do you deal with that? How do you restrain someone without them feeling like you are beating on them? It's just to hold them at bay. Just to hold them. Could you stand up for a second? Yeah, you girl. Come on around. Come on around. Look at the camera now. So if she's fighting, I can simply say, stop that. Okay? Now I can say, stop that. Don't do that. A gentle touch and a gentle firmness there, just to hold her in place while she's just trying to get away from me and go after someone else. But I can't just brace yourself, okay? You good? Yeah. All right. Okay. Did you sign the waiver? Not yet. So I can't just go, you stop that. You stop that. You understand? Don't do that to him. What are you doing? Now, she can then tell her mom and dad that he hit me. You're going to have to see. You did a very good job out there. Yeah. Angry guy up here. So we have to be very careful. And we can talk more about that when we're dealing with the kid. We have to be careful how we touch them, how we look at them, and the things we say to them. Okay? Be very careful about that. Any other questions? We're almost there. So in the event that those things happen, then we would have to send them home immediately, just to get to the point. We would have to send them home immediately for the day. And then what happens when we do that? We need to have a conference with the parent or guardian to say this took place, and we sense that maybe the kid needs, and this is something that Caroline and Will and I would have to work through. We may just sense, and maybe we call the Redeemer leadership in on this, okay, for wisdom and insight. And it may be that we say, let's give Johnny 2 weeks because Johnny inappropriately touched touch this kid, and let's try to get Johnny some counseling. Something's going on with Johnny if he's doing that, okay? And maybe he's not ready to re-engage after 2 weeks. We have to monitor that. We can't treat Johnny as if he's a leper. We can't say that Johnny's a bad kid, and he's doomed to fail, and he can never come back in the house because he's a bad kid. But we have to love on Johnny. We need to support the mom. A lot of the kids act out of what they see at home, and perhaps they have been messed with as well. And so it gives an opportunity to minister to them. Damaging the property, one thing that we've done in the past, we would ask the parents to pay for the damages because they have to be responsible for their kids. So if kids just want to take a chair and knock that window out, who's going to pay for that? Well, we're going to ask the parent to pay. Now, the parent may not be able to afford it, then we can help them out, but they need to take ownership so the kid understands their behavior is causing a hardship for mom and dad or the guardian at home. I said a lot, and we've also added here, showing respect to you is very important. We want them to know this and want you to know that so that you're able to say, hey guys, this is what we've all agreed that this will be the reality of how you're going to behave when you're coming to the after-school program here at New Star. And also punctuality, we want them to be on time, and I don't have to read that, it's self-explanatory. Then we'll ask them to fill out their name there, have the parent to sign, the student sign, and then we have the New Star representative to sign as well. Any questions? We're done with the code of conduct. I said a lot.
Good stuff.
Boom! So what are the questions you got, or challenges? Pushback. Yes.
What age group kids are you guys expecting?
Elementary age?
Yes, kindergarten through 5th or 6th. The 2 schools that will be coming most from are those 2.
What if you can't get a hold of the parent?
Mm.
I think that,
That's good.
I think that numbers change a lot.
Yes.
I
You're right.
think that,
Writing these questions
Yeah.
down.
It'd be good to have an address or a.
There's an emergency contact, but maybe you need a statement to notify us if your contact information changes, and phone number. If they move out of 16 Park, would they still be eligible for the program?
I think so.
We should put their address.
And maybe they should also add a secondary contact. So you have the emergency contact, and you have the secondary. Sometimes you have people in the community say, if something goes wrong, I'm not here, you can talk to my next door neighbor Sally, because that Sally is just like my kid's auntie. Yes, brother.
Will there be a additional form, giving permission to talk to the, kid's teacher and also get the grade information?
Yes, and yes, hopefully, yeah.
And I think the thought behind that is as we develop relationships with the kids and their parents, and parents give us permission to go to their schools and ask for their records, Luke, you can attest to this. Teachers love the idea of someone helping the student that they're working with on a daily basis with areas, with the weak areas. It could be reading, math, what have you. So they welcome that. But you have to get permission from the parent to get that from the teacher.
Is that something?
1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry.
any suggestions about engaging kids that are just standoffish because they're shy or afraid or anything like that? I mean, we talked about the combative kids, but what
Right.
about the other side?
Yeah. So you're saying kids that don't want to be around other kids?
Well, yeah, or afraid of adults maybe, or just awkward,
Mhm.
perhaps, I don't really know.
Maybe this setting is not a good place for them. Maybe you start with them at their own home, and build a relationship with them and assess their needs and how we can accommodate them in their particular situations. So that's a good question. I don't think we've ever had a student like it, but I know there are students that are that way, for sure. Special needs students. Yes.
How are you going to document the immediate suspension
Yeah.
things? You probably need
So.
some way to document that,
That's
I don't know.
So that's a good point. So that would be, and we need to add something down on this offense card, and then have something for those immediate suspension, and so that we can document that. That's a very good point.
Describe the behavior and you have
Exactly.
2 people.
We may need to have a whole page for that, to write a report if it's that bad. Very good. Any other questions? Yes?
I think one is like, so will the offense cards, like, will they be in like an egg crate off to like the side of a
Very
room
good.
or something? And do we like take the kid, like if like they swear in the middle of an activity, like I assume like you try to keep it going, but you say, hey, like, do they come with you over to that like filing cabinet, or do they come like back to the office?
Very good.
Um,
So I know, and that's something that Will and Caroline need to talk about a bit, but when you come in, so what we did in Chattanooga, is that we each tutor or student or teacher or volunteer would have a packet that they would use with their kid, and they would have a little kit. And then we have these with the packet, and so it'll be nearby where they can have immediate direction, they can just write it right there on the spot. They wouldn't have to worry about, they wouldn't have to say, I need one of those code of conduct forms, go get me one. You want to have it with you at all times, taking notes of what's happening in that kid's situation.
And I think go along with that, like whenever you're doing that confrontation, like get them alone.
Yes,
It
yes.
becomes a battle right there.
That's a good point. So now hopefully the ratio is really good, where we have maybe a 2-to-1 ratio. I know we haven't talked about that, but 2-to-1 will be awesome, where you have the other person say, okay, could you carry on with the group, or with, well, if you got 2-to-1, you can't, you got that song, I'm sorry. So if you have 2-to-5 ratio, and you have the assistant kind of carry on with the group activity or the session, and then you as a lead teacher, one of you decide who's gonna take that student away and deal with them on that. Or maybe if you don't have that type of ratio, you can ask for Caroline and Will, they should be floating around, and you can be able to say, hey, I need you for a second here. And then they could then take over here, or take the student, or simply take the kids and let the person, the helper, take the student and deal with them. We'll talk about that. There are ways to deal with that. These are very good questions that you're asking, because Will and Caroline will go back, they'll be brief, and we'll talk about it and say, okay, we need to add some things here. You guys are helping us build this awesome thing, this awesome program. Okay, several hands going, and let's do this and keep with our time. We want to try to get out here about 7:45, 7:50, and we quick little tour. But this is important. We're not trying to rush you. We want to make sure you feel comfortable with what you're about to step into. It's going to be beautiful. We want to make sure you have everything you need to do it. Yeah.
So like, if you have 2 kids that are fighting, are we gonna, do both of them go home? Is it both of them, or
Good
is
question.
it like, the aggressor goes home because the little guy pulled up in a ball and was crying? Does he have to go home? Like, just kind of like how, I guess there'll probably be situation. I feel like some kids may think that that's not fair, that we're well, you hit back in defense, well, you don't have to go home because you hit back in defense. Like, I think we need to talk about that a little bit
That's
more.
very good.
Or like, the issues with the restrooms and all that stuff. If you have 2 kids that are participating in something that it's not appropriate, both of them go home right away, or, that sort of thing.
See, I think that's very good. Two situations we can talk about. I think the first thought is, if you are present with your kids, then you should be able to prevent them from getting in trouble. I'm going to put a little pressure on you guys. You should be able to keep a handle, and that's why you have to say you've done wrong. I got to write you up, because I know if I let you get away with murder, it's going to bite you, it's going to bite them, it's going to affect other kids. So if you are present with the kids and you're seeing something going on with these 2 kids, okay, now Johnny and Sally, what's going on? Stop it. I know where this could go, so stop it now, okay? And if Johnny's done something to Sally, Johnny, I'm going to write you up for that, okay? I just want you to know that. That's not good. And you're sending the message to the rest of the kids in the group. They feel safe. If someone does wrong, do you have some shy kids in there? And in this day and time, bullies are just taking over. And kids are having psychological issues to the point where they are committing suicide because they've been bullied. And that's how serious this is. So if you got someone doing those kinds of things, call them out on that. It helps them and helps the kids. So at any rate, if you are present with them, then you could help them avoid what it could be. Does that make sense? Now, if it just happens so quickly where Johnny hits Sally, and Sally says, oh, no, you didn't, and she goes and hits Johnny, Sally and Johnny are both fighting. I know. Sally and Johnny, they're both fighting because they both threw punches.
And I think if it's something you don't see, you come up and they're fighting, but you don't know what happened, you can separate it, and then later you can find out who's starting the fights, because they'll be separate, you'll know who the aggressor is.
Yeah. And it, it's unfortunate, but in the event, it's unfortunate they were fighting and you didn't know how it started, and if you're present, right? But in the event that it kicks off very quickly, before you know, because sometimes it just happens, then you probably can't, if you don't know what happened, then I wouldn't necessarily send both of them home. They get a pass on that one. And that's why it's important, you heard me say it. That's why it's important to stay present with them so that you don't have to have your hands tied where you can't make a call. In all fairness, it wouldn't be right if you sent both home and Sally didn't throw a punch. It wasn't Sally's fault, but because they were in this action here and Sally just had her hands on just to stop them, it wouldn't be fair to send Sally home because you didn't see how this thing jumped off. Does that make sense? Those are tough questions, man. Ooh, those are tough questions. Now, let me say this. In the event, well, I won't shoot myself in the foot. In the event that you sense, I have to say it, y'all. In the event that you sense that one of the kids just could not help his or her actions, and you sense they're really trying. For instance, the kid says, I will beat your, and part of that came out. And you sense that they're trying to hold back, then I would not write them up for that. It's like, Phil, you just confused us. Then how will we know? How will we know? Grace is important. We believe that. And I think there are times in which we can sense that kid was really trying hard not to get in trouble. But here's the challenge when I say that. If it's a situation where you can keep the other kids from saying, you let him get away with it, so I can get away with it, it's hard. But there is a time and a space where that kid is trying and somehow you have to be able to give them another chance. I hope I didn't just confuse you. I hope I didn't just discredit everything I've shared. But guys, there is grace. There is grace. And I can't do it right. I'm not the Holy Spirit. Go ahead.
Well, along with that.
Err on the side of grace.
Right, and that's knowing a kid.
That's good.
That's having a
You
relationship
bailed
and
me out,
knowing
bro.
that child is trying to not say a curse word. And if you don't know that and you don't know that child, then you'll write them off because you're going off the books. So the important
good.
thing is to know your kids well enough to know whether or not they're really doing those things.
Then let me ask you this. I like how you bailed me out. You told the truth. But then how do you explain it to the other kids?
I don't know.
Do they have to see you do that?
Okay.
Make it discreet.
Okay.
Well, and Phil, I think it's important to say like,
We're working this thing out. Praise God. I love that. Now I'm learning something. That's a beautiful thing. There's an exchange here. Who'll say something?
I was saying I think it's important like that something happens. You know, like if the kid slips, he's having a hard time, you want to support him in that weakness, and instead of just completely overlooking like, oh, like Johnny just had a hard time, he recovered, he's fine. Like whether it's right away or very shortly after, like pulling Johnny aside, like, hey, I saw you catch yourself, like that was good, and you still have the kid aside. It's like
That's good.
He's reminded, oh, I tried, like it was recognized what I did, everybody else recognized that he did it, but it wasn't counted against them.
That's good. I like that. Any other thoughts? Yes. I'm learning tonight. Thank y'all.